So we are at Isaiah chapter 46, and my goal today is to get through 48, and 46, 47, 48 are relatively short, so I think we can do it. I want to, and chapter 46 is about the fall of Babylon, and we've talked about that before, that how, and last week, one of the chapters that we looked at chapter 45 talks specifically about Cyrus, who was the king of Persia, that joined up with the, I don't know, is it Memes or Memes or with another kingdom that's MEMES. So now we say memes, but I don't know. But anyhow, and they conquered Babylon. So, and chapter 45 and 46 talk about Cyrus being used by God as an instrument for the Israelites, which is an interesting kind of concept, I think. So I want to talk a little bit about Cyrus first, and then we'll read chapter 46. So Cyrus, there was more than one Cyrus. So his father we're talking about the Cyrus that often is referred to as Cyrus the Great, but his father was Cyrus also. So,
and is he Babylonian, did you say?
Persian. Yeah, he's from Persia. So he's from an area a little west, like at the north end of the Persian Gulf. All right, we don't have a map up that shows it, but where Cyrus is from is sort of, if you can picture in your mind, sort of where Saudi Arabia is and stuff. He's at the north end of the Persian Gulf, and it's in land there. So Babylon's a superpower, all right, and so Cyrus conquers them. He, first of all, so just to back up, remember we're in the BC era. So Judah, the leaders of Judah and stuff were taken to Babylon in 586. Okay. Cyrus the Great, he defeated Babylon about 50 years later in 539 is when he defeated Babylon. And so, and then it's a little bit later before he sends everybody back to Israel, right? But he was kind of, maybe you could say he was known for his religious freedom beliefs, because when he conquered Babylon, and chapter 46 kind of gets into this, before he came in, his troops came in and defeated Babylon. The leaders of Babylon had taken all the idols out of their little shrines and hidden them elsewhere, all right, so that they wouldn't be destroyed. So then when Cyrus came into power, he let them bring their idols back into their shrines. It was like, oh, I'm cool with that, that's all right. And then, with him letting the Israelites go back to Judah, he's like, hey, I'm cool with that, So he was known as kind of like, not bad for a conqueror, in terms of how he treated folks. And I don't know if it's Sarah or Susan, if either of you want to add anything to this or not. Let's see. All right, so that's the main thing that I wanted to say about Cyrus. All right, so Sarah, if I assume you want to read first?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so you're going to read chapter 46, which is verses 1 through 13. And good morning, Claire.
Okay, and I'm reading this out of Golden Gaze book.
Oh, okay.
Bel has bowed down, Nebo is stooping. Their images have become for animals, cattle. The things carried by you are loaded as a burden for weary ones. They have stooped, they have bowed down together. They could not rescue the burden. They themselves have gone into captivity. Listen to me, Jacob's household, all the remains of Israel's household, who have been loaded from birth, who have been carried from the womb. Even unto old age, I will be the one. Even until gray-headedness, I will be the one who will bear. I am the one who made, I am the one who carries. I am the one who bears, and I will rescue. To whom can you compare me so that I should be similar, or liken me so that we are comparable? People who lavish gold from a purse or weigh out silver by the rod, hire a smith so that he may make it into a god to which they may fall down, bow low. They carry it on their shoulder, bear it, so they can settle it in its position and it can stand. From its place, it won't move. And someone can cry out to it, but it doesn't answer. It doesn't deliver him from his trouble. Keep this in mind. Be strong. Bring it back to mind, you rebels. Keep in mind earlier events of old, because I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me, announcing the outcome from the beginning and from beforehand things that have not been done, saying, my plan will arise, all I wish I will do, summoning from the east a shriek, from a far country the person in my plan. I both spoke and will also bring it about. I formed and will also do it. Listen to me, you strong of mind, you who are far away from faithfulness. I have brought faithfulness near. It is not far away, and my deliverance won't delay.
Okay, and my version has another verse. I shall place my salvation in Zion and my glory in Israel.
Oh, yeah, it's there. I didn't turn the page.
Okay, all right, so first of all, to say that Bel is one of the Babylonian gods. Bel is the god of the sky, and Nebo who is cowering, is the god of wisdom. So so that's who Bel and Nebo are. All right. So what do you hear in this passage? What's going on?
Kind of like before, when we were talking about, here, you take a piece of wood and you cook with it on your fire and then you make a god of it. And, I'm hearing the same kind of thing here. Listen, you shape something out of gold and then you bow down to it. That these things, you have to carry it, you have to set it up right, you have to take care of it and hide it in caves and stuff like that. And so I'm the one who's been carrying you all along. You have to carry your gods and around, but I've been the one carrying you. I've been the one restoring you, all along. And so it's like God is really mad. He's jealous, and say he sounds like jealous, very jealous.
Sounds jealous too.
In these last few chapters, he says, what are you doing? Paying attention to these guys over here. Look at me. I'm the great one.
I think it's frustration.
Yeah, I think it's
Frustration.
Right.
It's almost like you're dealing with a really self-centered teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or someone
And
who's,
that kind of that sort of tone. I mean, it's at a much larger
Yeah.
scale, obviously.
And he just
but-
keeps rambling on and on to him about it, but then they never listen anyway, so
just don't get it.
Teenager.
that's the parent. Yeah, that's the parent. Don't do this, don't do this. I told you not to do that.
Yeah. I like how Golden Gate titles this, "Gods You Have to Carry and the God Who Carries You."
Mhm.
And the other thing that really struck me is, and I keep forgetting this, Judaism was the first monotheistic religion.
right.
No, I'm sorry, it wasn't. Egypt
Oh,
was.
What
Egypt.
was
Egypt was the first monotheistic.
monotheistic?
Yes,
They had lots of gods.
during the time of Epithenia or whatever her name was. Yeah. Yep. Sorry.
And she
Yeah,
was the only
at-
God?
At one point, they switched over to worshiping just the sun god, and then that fell out of favor, but there was, they moved the capital, they did all of this stuff to change things, and then it went back.
That's right,
Went
because
back.
she got very unpopular because she did away with all the other gods. So she eventually went back and let them have all their little gods, many, many gods. But the point is, it was Egypt that was the first that had one God, not the Hebrews.
So that happened before Moses and Abraham?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
It was during the first kingdom, I think, of Egypt. You know, we have three, I think, separate time zones in Egypt. And I think I'll think of I'll think of her name in a minute, and her husband, and he died, and she became a great leader. But at any rate, the point is, it was Egypt.
And I think
So,
the
There's some-
Judaism, the Hebrew people, the more reading I do, they were not as monotheistic as we want to think they were.
Well, yeah,
there's a religion called Zoroastrianism.
yes.
Zoroastrian, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Zoroastrianism.
an ancient Persian religion that may have originated as early as 4,000 years ago. Arguably the world's first monotheistic faith. It's one of the oldest religions still in existence.
Huh. And the Cyrus came from there.
Mhm.
That's where Cyrus came from.
Came from Egypt? Wait a minute. Cyrus,
From part where the Zoroastrians are, where it originated.
no, the originated in Egypt,
The Zoroastrians?
I believe so.
Oh,
It's,
I
they said
don't,
it's an ancient Persian religion, but.
Okay, I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
well, it gets, yeah, who knows, yeah. Either way, I forget about how, and looking back at the history of Israel and stuff. I mean, it was a countercultural kind of thing to be monotheistic. I mean, we're used to it.
Yeah.
We've been living this, we meaning
Well, I think of
especially
Native
European,
Americans,
folks of European descent have been living this for thousands of years.
the Indians had a lot of different spirits.
Yes.
But they had one great spirit.
Uh-huh.
And I hope I'm not offending anyone by saying this, but I think if you even look at early Christian religions such as the Catholic faith or the Orthodox faith, all those saints that people would pray to, this saint is the saint of fertility, this saint is the saint of safe travels, I think there was a little bit of holdover from those faiths that had multiple gods.
I never looked at it from that standpoint. No, you pray for the intercession of the saints to assist you.
Yeah.
Prayers to God more than anything else. But I wouldn't, cynically, I look at it just gives the papacy more control over the populace. Okay, by giving them more options of prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a cynic in me.
Well, it is hard. I think it is hard at times for us to conceive of this one God that can do everything.
Yeah.
That's, that can be hard, but if, I think about Saint Christopher, that's one that a lot of Protestants are familiar with.
Yeah.
When you got somebody specifically to go to, you don't have to worry about it, that he's
Right.
busy with everything else,
If you're going on a trip, this is the guy you gotta, if you're intercessory.
Yeah, this is the guy you want to have looking out for you.
And I can remember a statement in the Chosen where the Roman God saying, well, if you want this, then you go to this God. And if you want this one, you go to this God.
Because that's how
So you only have
humanity is
one God.
organized.
Yeah, that's how we're organized.
That's how we're organized, and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you want your taxes done, you go to the tax man.
Yeah, right, you want your house clean, you call Nate, so it's been an ongoing struggle. Yeah, so, all right. So being sure that we're listening to God and his question of, the gods you have to
I just
carry.
hear God saying, ultimately, the buck stops here.
Whoa, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, so the state of things in Babylon, Golden Gate makes the analogy that what's happening in Babylon at this point in this passage, as far as the state of things in Babylon, is similar to where they were in Britain at the end of World War II. As far as trying to sort out or becoming aware of where we are and the condition of things that Babylon's sort of in a similar state that Britain was at the end of World War II. So, all right, anything anybody else wants to add about chapter 46? All right, chapter 47. So if somebody could read verses 1 through 15. All right, so this is a lament for Babylon, all right?
I can do that.
Okay, all right,
And this section in my Bible is called the Fall of Babylon. Go down, set in the dust, virgin daughter Babylon, set on the ground without a throne, queen of the Babylonians. No more will you be called tender or delicate. Take millstones and grind flour. Take off your veil, lift up your skirts, bare your legs, and wade through the streams. Your nakedness will be exposed and your shame uncovered. I will take vengeance. I will spare no one. Our Redeemer, the Lord Almighty is his name, is the Holy One of Israel. Set in silence, go into darkness, queen city of the Babylonians. No more will you be called queen of kingdoms. I was angry with my people and desecrated my inheritance. I gave them into your hand and you showed them no mercy. Even on the aged, you laid a very heavy yoke. You said, I am forever the eternal queen, but you did not consider these things or reflect on what might happen. Now then, listen, you lover of pleasure, lounging in your security and saying to yourself, I am, and there is none beside me. I will never be a widow or suffer the loss of children. Both of these will overtake you in a moment, on a single day, loss of children and widowhood. They will come upon you in full measure, in spite of your many sorceries and all your potent spells. You have trusted in your wickedness and have said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and knowledge mislead you when you say to yourself, I am, and there is none beside me. Disaster will come upon you, and you will not know how to conjure it away. A calamity will fall upon you that you cannot ward off with a ransom. A catastrophe you cannot foresee will suddenly come upon you. Keep on then with your magic spells and with your many sorceries, which you have labored at since childhood. Perhaps you will succeed. Perhaps you will cause terror. All the counsel you have received has only worn you out. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions mouth by mouth. Let them save you from what is coming upon you. Surely they are like stubble. The fire will burn them up. They cannot even save themselves from the power of the flame. These are not coals for warmth. This is not a fire to sit by. You want me to go all the way, right?
through 15.
That is all they are to you. These you have dealt with and labored since childhood. All of them go on in their error. There is not one that can save you.
So this seems to be written by a prophet in Babylon, from Babylon. You know, seems to have sort of that day-to-day inside observations as far as what's happening. And he's finding it hard to get anybody to believe him. All right. So why do you think he starts off by referring to Babylon as virgin daughter of Babylon? What do you think that means? How does it strike you?
Well, the way he describes it, it's, they, Babylon has been preserved the way it wants to be, but then when the war comes to Babylon, that's when the virgin loses her virginity. She is brought to shame and she's walking naked through the streams. And so it's a way of, I think in a lot of cultures, virginity was sort of held up as the ideal. And when she lost your virginity, you were considered less
Yeah, it's
than.
like she's been a queen, but now she's gonna have to get down there and work with
Now
all
she's
of
gonna have
us.
to work, yeah.
She's gonna have to grind her own flour and, you
She's
know,
gonna, some of her children are gonna die and she's gonna be that, she's gonna be just
Right.
a common person struggling through life.
And the people are gonna find out that she's not particularly compassionate either,
mhm.
that, if you're counting on your, leaders to be looking out for you at this, it ain't gonna happen.
I also get a sense of naivety. Okay, when I read this kind of, how naive you have been. That you could be standing there with all these, fine things and all this power and all this control, and it's gonna come to an end because of what you've done.
Right, right.
So that's what I sense.
Uh-huh, yeah, I think that's an indication of naivety too, that you're not paying attention. You're not, again, you're not doing what you need to be doing.
Let them eat cake.
Yeah, so it just keeps going on. So she thought, and because Babylon itself thought it was sort of like a god, when you make gods out of every piece of wood, or you get a piece of gold, you take that and make another idol out of it. You sort of, I can see how, you just become, well, if everything else is a god, I can be a god too. And so that, put yourselves, at risk. So, excuse me. And Golden Gate makes the point too about how superpowers can never imagine they're gonna be overthrown.
Mhm.
Because you think you're gonna be a
Right.
superpower forever.
Who's the next
Who's
superpower?
the next thing?
Uh-huh, right. And Cyrus, Persia is the next superpower. He's got God on his side. So,
Well, Babylon did too at one point,
yeah, that's true.
in Assyria.
Yeah.
And then 200 years later, Alexander the Great comes through the exact same area. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
superpower is what I mean. Yeah.
So again, there's a cycle that I seem to be thinking about. I think the Greeks call it hubris. And you get to a point where I'm just, so powerful and I'm in control of everything and I'm it. And then suddenly you're not.
Right. So and I don't know if there's a way to answer this or not. How do we, as, everyday people, when we see that hubris, how do we deal with it?
I'm burying my head in the sand. Unfortunately.
I'm absolutely
we-
terrified because I think history's repeating itself before our very eyes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
I
And
agree.
it always has repeated itself before everyone's very eyes. It's always been this power, then this power, then this power. Hey, God, when you gonna come? But then God came as Babylonian, or God came as Assyria, so who knows?
Can you speak Mandarin?
No, I can't, but we'll probably have to learn.
Orange,
Orange?
Mandarin orange.
Oh, Mandarin.
That instrument you play, the Mandarin.
What's sad is I feel like I'm in the middle of this society that's breaking down. And all we can do is seemingly joke about it and let it happen. And I feel so helpless.
Well, vote often. You know,
Yeah,
go to the polls 2 or 3 times a day, you know, just keep mailing them in.
yeah.
No,
Remember, he's on the other side.
I'm just wondering whose day it is to be right.
Oh, we lost you.
it's our day to be right.
We've lost track. So,
Yes,
48.
we digress.
yeah. All right. All right. So one other thing about chapter 47 that as far as this is, you know, literature kind of thing, that the author seems to be starting out talking about as though the fall of Babylon is coming and then switches to, oh, it's happened. So, you know, which we've seen happen several other times in Isaiah as well too. So even in, you know, because this section, starting with chapter 40, is referred to as the second Isaiah. So it's generally thought, you know, this is a different author. I mean, there's some scholars that think it was multiple authors throughout the book of Isaiah, but there's a general consensus that this section, the language is different, the format is different, and
It's a
so.
totally different
Re-
time.
Remember,
was-
remember when we were studying, the, king, I can't remember his name, of Babylon, saw the writing on the wall, God's finger writing on the wall, because the
Daniel.
Persians were coming, you know, and he,
Cyrus.
yeah,
Cyrus.
and, he, did his britches. He was so scared, remember, you know?
Yeah, so Cyrus, you know, Cyrus keeps popping up several times during the Old Testament. So, and Cyrus turned out to be, you know, a decent kind of guy, it seemed like, you know, he wasn't.
Well, the
into this stuff.
Babylonians don't think so.
No, they didn't think so, but he did, you know, let them put their idols back in their
idols.
shrines,
Mhm.
so anyhow. All right, so chapter 48, if someone would read 1 through 22.
I
Let's
can do
let's
that.
break that up, because that's a long, how about
We'll do 1 through 11.
1 through 11, and then, Bernie, you want to read 12 through 22?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, I'll read 1 through 11. Hear this, you house of Jacob, you who are called by the name of Israel.
All right, so we're back to talking about Israel.
Stubborn Israel is what this one's called.
Yeah.
You who spring from the seed of Judah, who swear by the name of the Lord and boast in the God of Israel, but not in honesty or sincerity, although you call yourselves citizens of a holy city and lean for support on the God of Israel. His name is the Lord of hosts. Long ago, I announced what would first happen. I revealed it with my own mouth. Suddenly I acted, and it came about. I knew that you were stubborn, your neck stiff as iron, your brow like bronze. Therefore I told you of these things long ago and declared them before they came about, so that you could not say, this was my idol's doing. My image, the God that I fashioned, he ordained them. You have heard what I said, consider it well, and you must admit the truth of it. Now I show you new things, hidden things which you did not know before. They were not created long ago, but in this very hour. You had never heard of them before today. You cannot say, I know them already. You neither heard nor knew. Long ago, your ears were closed. For I knew that you were untrustworthy, treacherous, a notorious rebel from your birth. For the sake of my own name, I was patient. Rather than destroy you, I held myself in check. See how I tested you, not as silver is tested, but in the furnace of affliction. There I purified you. For my own honor, I did it. Let them disparage my past triumphs if they will. I will not give my glory to any other God.
Okay, so you want me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, this is Cyrus, the Lord's chosen leader. The Lord says, listen to me, Israel, the people I have called. I am God, the first, the last, the only God. My hands made the earth's foundations and spread the heavens out. When I summon earth and sky, they come at once and present themselves. Assemble and listen, all of you. None of the gods could predict that the man I have chosen would attack Babylon. He will do what I want him to do. I am the one who spoke and called him. I led him out and gave him success. Now come close to me and hear what I say. From the beginning, I have spoken openly and have always made my words come true. Now the sovereign Lord has given me his power and sent me. The holy God of Israel, the Lord who saves you, says, I am the Lord your God, the one who wants to teach you for your own good and direct you in a way you should go. If only you had listened to my commands, then blessings would have flowed for you like the stream that never goes dry. Victory would have come to you like the waves that roll on the shore. Your descendants would be as numerous as grains of sand, and I would have made sure they were never destroyed. Go out from Babylon, go free. Shout the news gladly, make it known everywhere. The Lord has saved his servant Israel. When the Lord led his people through the hot, dry desert, they did not suffer from thirst. He made water come from a rock for them. He split the rock open and water flowed out. There is no safety for sinners, says the Lord.
Yep. All right, so that imagery there at the end is familiar one, you know, the water flowing from the rock, that God rescued you, the water from the rock. Golden Gate titles this section, If Only. If only Israel. You know, and then it's, where is it? There is where it says, if only.
Mine titled that last part, the Lord's plan for his people.
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah, Israel's destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so at the end of verse 17, if only you had listened to my commandments. Only you had listened to my commandments.
The teenager, yeah.
Right, so Babylon and, it sounds like, you know, reading through all this, Babylon and Israel aren't that much different from each other. Is how it strikes me.
But it's a little, a big part of the problem I have with the Old Testament is it to me is just reinforcing this idea that whenever something bad happens, it's because you're being punished for your sins. So, you know, in biblical times, if you had leprosy, it was because you or your parents had done something evil and you were being punished. And it's sort of the same thing here. You're being punished by being conquered by the Persians or the Babylonians or whomever, but there's also this idea of well, I think Cindy called it the prosperity gospel. You know, if you'd only done what I said to do, your children would be as numerous as the stars and you'd have all this wealth and prosperity. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. That's not how it works. We all know good people who are not prosperous and people who aren't so good who are. So I have a hard time with this.
And I think that the only solace that I can get from Isaiah is that you can do what you do what you can, but you know, we're here to serve, we're here to help other people. But other than that, trust in God to save you.
Yeah.
Okay, don't trust in something else, you know, to save you. You know, don't go to this other country to save you, or go to here to save you, or there to save you. That you have to trust that God will save you in the end. The problem is that the end is not the end that I'd like, you know,
Yeah.
And
you'd like it in your lifetime, but it's not.
Well, there's a fine line between trust in God to save you and fear God to save you throughout the Old Testament. That's why I don't like it. I don't like the Old Testament. Because
Well-
there's that fine line. And I don't like it. I don't believe in fearing God.
yeah, but you know, the Old Testament is history. You know, it's the history written much later. It's trying to tell a story, you know, it's not the facts by any stretch of the imagination. You know, but it's, you know, we rewrite history all the time, and the people that wrote this history were trying to make their points. You know, it's you know, when David went out and committed genocide, well, God told me to do it. Well, you know, that's the way history was written in David's court, you know. So I just look at the Old Testament as history, and history written by the winners, history written by who, you know, wanted people to see it this way, and you blame God for everything that went bad, and if you got punished, but it was just simply a history written much later by individuals trying to make a point, teach a point, I should say.
I keep hearing reference to the 10 Commandments and God saying, here's 10 rules. If you follow them, everything will be okay. Break them and you're in trouble.
Right.
But the greatest rule came to us. To love one another.
Right.
Well, and that rule had been given earlier,
Right.
you know, had been given early on, but we keep forgetting it. Humanity in general, we keep forgetting it. Even now, we keep forgetting it. So this is an uplifting conversation.
Well, it is uplifting in a way. You'll get back to follow the rules and you'll be okay.
Or we're all
And God-
so old, we probably won't see it happen. The next great, you know, upheaval, you know.
We're almost ready to see it happen.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Yeah. Because God keeps telling us just that, you know? Verse 9, he says, for my own name's sake, I delay my wrath. For the sake of my praise, I will hold it back from you, so as not to destroy you completely. And I keep telling, and he says in verse 6, from now on, I will tell you of new things. You know, and so God's pretty direct and honest, and, you know, he's not beating around the bush.
I like it, Bernie, when you said the teenager again, you know, I can hear, you know, where God say, for my own sake,
Yeah.
I'm doing this, you know,
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
I'm trying to preserve my own sanity as we keep working on this. Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, but the end of chapter 48, the end of the exile. Leave Babylon, flee from the Babylonians. Announce this with shouts of joy and proclaim it. Send it out to the ends of the earth. Say, the Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob. They did not thirst, and he split the rock and they had water. You know, so God's fussing at him, but then he's saying, you know, hey, it's time to leave Babylon. It's okay. You're gonna have water for the journey.
I'm trying to remember, was it Nehemiah that led them, or I always get that name wrong. Was it Nehemiah, the prophet, that led them back to Jerusalem?
I don't know.
Um,
We need to go back and read 2 Kings to get them.
I'll ask Jake.
People know.
I'll ask Siri.
Oh, okay.
My name is David.
Right, so, all right. All right, so Susan's looking up who leads them back,
Who led the
Israelites.
Israelites back to Jerusalem after Babylon?
Fred.
Well, it didn't say who, it just says that Cyrus the Great gave them permission to return, but I haven't
Right.
gotten who led them back. It just says Cyrus the Great.
Harold, you
In the
can look up
event-
what did Nehemiah do?
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm sorry, what was that?
You can look up what did Nehemiah do.
Oh, yeah. I can't get this Zoom to go away to look up stuff.
we're talking about Nehemiah, visions of 3 Dog Night,
Yeah.
and their songers. So, all right, so we do have a few more minutes, but I'm gonna stop here because chapter 49 to 55 take an entire, sort of a whole different perspective. And so this is a good breaking point, stopping point for today. That the focus goes back onto Israel and as God's servant Israel. And so talking about how to restore Israel and be a light to nations. Ooh, Bernie's like, ooh, yeah, that's a nice follow-up to some of our discussion
Thank you for
today.
getting into some New Testaments.
Well, if you go and look at the video on Bible Project for the last section of, and you'll see that. So, but that's interesting what you brought up, Carol, about how the Old Testament being history. And, you know, that it was like a lot of history, it was written for a particular perspective. Because one of the things I learned is that First and Second Chronicles, I really wasn't aware of this, is sort of a retelling of the stories from First and Second Kings, and what was the one before that, First and Second Samuel? Is that the name of the book? Yeah, my brain's done. Anyhow, First and Second Chronicles retells it with a particular spin, like in telling the stories about David, it leaves out the stories about Saul chasing him through the desert. It leaves out the story of Bathsheba, you know?
Yeah.
So it,
Pick and choose.
yeah, it tells the good stories about David, in Chronicles. And that Chronicles is the last book in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's the last book in the Hebrew Scriptures. So,
One of the difficulties I have with Old Testament writing is, Harold, to your point, that it is a history written by the winners, but it's also a history written in code. And the code is sometimes societies are referred to as lions and whatever. And so there's a whole lot to understand to even be able to begin to understand what you're trying.
yeah, to understand the metaphors of the day.
You've got to know
Yeah.
the code and the metaphors and the history of who shot John and all that stuff.
Hey, I've got something about Nehemiah here.
Okay.
All right.
This is from Wikipedia. In the 20th year of Artaxerxes, which was roughly 445 BC, Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king. Learning that the remnant of Jews in Judah were in distress and that the walls of Jerusalem were broken down, he asked the king for permission to return and rebuild the city. Around 20 years after Ezra's arrival in Jerusalem in 468 BC. Artaxerxes sent him to Judah as governor of the province with a mission to rebuild. Letters explaining his support for the venture and provision for timber from the king's forest. Once there, Nehemiah defied the opposition of Judah's enemies on all sides and rebuilt the walls within 52 days from the Sheep Gate in the north, at the northwest corner of the Fish Gate in the west, the Furnaces Tower, and so forth and so on.
So
Yeah.
8 years after
Right.
where we are right now.
And
Okay.
in mine, it says initially around 50,000 Jews returned to the land of Judah following the decree of Cyrus as described in Ezra, whereas most remained in Babylon. Later, an unknown number of exiles returned from Babylon with Ezra himself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ezra and Nehemiah were contemporaries.
Yeah. All right, because they've been in Babylon for a couple, 3 generations, so about 60, 70 years. So I imagine there were a number of people that,
Didn't want to leave.
okay, right. We're not sure everybody left Egypt either. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they've been there for a while. So anyhow,
One last question. What did they come, what language did they come back to Jerusalem speaking?
we don't know. What was it?
Mandarin,
Aramaic.
Oh, Aramaic.
Aramaic,
Yes, we have
Aramaic.
talked about that before.
Aramaic,
Because Aramaic's roots are in Babylon.
that's great.
Yeah. And then, so that became the,
Harold, thanks for all your historical contributions.
Yes.
Yes,
That's
thank
good
you.
to know.
thank you, thank you.
I'll just make it up as we go.
Well,
No, you're finding it in your
just
file
one
cabinet.
more
There I go.
prophetic writer, you might as well make it up as well as anybody.